Hi everybody, welcome back. We're going to continue on with the reflection settings for our can material. In the last part we kind of got to this point where we've sort of got the label applied, the main colours for the can, and we also got the bump map applied as well. And we're now going to kind of finish this material off. Now I just want to point out that this is not the only way of doing materials. In this case, what we've done, because we've used a color texture that we created in Photoshop that had colors for the entire can, plus the ring pull, on the one picture, what we've done is loaded all of that into one shader. But technically what we could have done was applied a shader for the label area of the can, a shader for the ring pull, a shader for the top of the can, and a shader for the bottom of the can, and kind of separated it up like that. But the issue with doing it that way is that basically you've got to pretty much, instead of just having one material like this, you would end up with like about 4 materials, and most of the settings would be the same on each one. So you'd have to go through each one and type in all the numbers and things manually and make sure they're all the same. So we're sort of doing this in a sort of more streamlined way. But that's not to say that every time you build a model, you've got to make the entire object just have one material. That's not the case. It's just a case-by-case basis. Alright, let's jump back in, and I'll just turn off this render view, seeing as that's still open. What I'm going to do now is add in some nodes into my reflectivity value. So what I'm going to do is just select my can shader, so that I can get back to the main attributes for it. And I'm going to come down to the reflectivity value just here. Now, in this situation, I need to use the hypershade for the next stage. What we're going to do is create a little node network using 2 different nodes, and we're going to plug it into the reflectivity value. Now, what these nodes do is basically change the amount of reflection the surface of the material has, determined by the difference in the angle between the direction a polygon is facing to the camera that we're looking through. So basically what we can do is make the front of the can here that's facing directly towards the camera really reflective or not reflective at all, but the polygons around the side of the can where they're actually facing a 90-degree angle away from the can, we can have those very reflective or not very reflective. It's basically the effect that you have on glass or even on car paint. When you look sort of directly into a window in a car, for example, you can pretty much see clearly through the window, and you might see some reflection, okay, as well. But when you walk around to the front of the car and you look along the side of the car and you look at those windows, they will look almost completely non-transparent. They'll look more like a mirror, and it's got different terms that it's referred to by, but you could call it like a glancing angle. And in Maya's case, the node that we're going to be using, the attribute for it's called facing ratio. So we're going to add those in. Now to do that, we need to be down here in the work area of our hypershade. Now I'm just going to clear this graph up a bit by pressing the rearrange button, and that'll just kind of tidy it up. So the first thing I want to do is find a couple of nodes in here. Now this panel is turned on and off using this little toggle button here, so just make sure you've got your create panel open. And what I want to do is find a ramp node. Now there's a ramp shader, and that's not the one we want. Okay, don't confuse ramp shader with ramp. If we keep scrolling down, you'll find a ramp here. So it's blue, green, red, like this. So this is the one that we want, ramp shader. So when you click on that, it adds it into the work area, and it puts 2 nodes in. It's put the ramp and the placement node for the ramp. So the placement node really is just what positions the ramp on the object. Okay, you shouldn't really play around with this. We don't really need to change anything on this placement node. Just leave it sort of as is. Now the other the other node that we need for our material is under the utilities list just here. So just look down for utilities, and it's called the sampler info node, and you'll find it just here. A quick way of getting to that, if you click on utilities here and then just start typing in sampler, so usually if you hit SA, it'll pop it up just there. So all that's doing is filtering out the visible nodes. So I'll just grab sampler info and that'll pop it in there. Once you've done that, you can just turn this create panel off just by clicking the toggle, and that'll give us a bit more room to work with. And I'm just putting my cursor down here and pressing A just to kind of center everything and zoom in on the contents of that panel. So we've got the sampler info node and we've got this ramp, and what we want to do is plug this sampler info into the ramp. So to do that, you can either middle mouse drag the sampler info onto the ramp like that, and it'll pop up this little menu, and what you'll need to do is select other, or if your mouse is playing up, if you're at school and it's, you know, you've got a mouse that's not really kind of set up correctly, what you can do is right click on this little output button, and let's have a look. So what you want to do is select facing ratio, and you get this little connection line when you let go of the mouse. And what you do is you come down to the input on the ramp, you right click that, and what we need to do is select other. Oops. Oops, there it goes. Now that just got stuck there for a minute. I'm not too sure what that was. That little menu appeared and it kind of you saw it kind of stick there for a second. So what this has done is basically popped open this connection editor. So what you do is you select facing ratio, and under UV coordinate you select U coordinate. Now that's going to be the same as if you just middle mouse drag this onto here and you select other. This is the panel that it drops up, that it opens up, and you do the exact same selection. It's just with the way the mice are playing up in the studio, some people aren't able to middle mouse drag. So that's how you get around that. You just right click from one little output onto an input, and then just select other from the menu that appears. Okay, so when you get those two selected, facing ratio and UV coordinate, or sorry, U coordinate I should say, just press close. So now what we need to do is we need to plug this into our CAN shader, and then we need to modify the ramp. So what I'm going to do once again is middle mouse drag the ramp onto the shader, and I'm going to plug it into the reflectivity value. Now once again, that value doesn't appear in this list, so I need to press other like that, and then it'll kind of pop this up. Basically what you'll need to do is look for out alpha, and this is from our ramp. So we want out alpha, and then if we scroll right down, we want to find reflectivity. Now it's not the MI reflectivity at the bottom, it's this one just here. Okay, so we want those two, and you can see it's connecting together with these lines. All right. Now I'm just going to do that again with the right mouse button version. Okay, just so that people that have got a dodgy mouse can do that. So I'll right click here on the ramp, whoops, and I'll select out alpha, and then I'll click up here on the CAN shader input area, and I just want to double check that it's not appearing in this list. No, it's not. So what I'll do is hit other, and you can see here that this menu just stays. So what I'm doing here is just clicking, just click inside this window and it'll disappear basically. So we go down to out alpha and we go down here to reflectivity like that. All right, and close. So it's two different ways of doing the exact same thing. All right. Okay, so now with the ramp selected, we've got the ramp attributes over here, and I'll need to modify these. The first thing we want to do is change the type to URamp, because we're using the U coordinates that we set with the facing ratio just before. The interpolation, look, you can leave it at linear, or if you want, you can set it to smooth. You'll find that the smooth just tightens the color gradient up slightly, but it's not really going to change it drastically. Okay. We do need 3 different colors for this, but the colors and positions are going to be changed. So in order to change the positions, you can drag up and down on the circle. If you want to delete one, you can just click on the little cross button at the end. And if you want to add one, you just click in the swatch and it puts a new one in. The first one, what I want to do is bring that down. And I'm going to set that to black, basically. Like that. And this should be sort of up around, almost at the top, like this. The next one is going to be about here, roughly. And it's going to be like a medium grey. So I'm just going to drag the slider for selected colour all the way to the left, and that'll get rid of all of the colour saturation, and then I can dial it back up towards the right, and what that'll do is actually give me a grey colour. So I want it to be sort of a bit less than halfway. All right, so it's probably about 40% grey, roughly. The last one, just here, is once again going to be grey, but it's going to be a very dark grey, so probably to about here, roughly, yeah, about there. And the position is going to be about halfway up the ramp, about here. So what that's going to do, basically, the way that this works is, the top of the ramp is where the polygons are facing directly at the camera. So on my model here, I'm just going to turn this back to default so we can kind of see the object a little more clearly. And I'll just turn that texture off for a second. Okay, so the top of the ramp is sort of where the polygons are facing directly at the camera. So that's kind of like where this white, you can see that white highlight there. That's basically that area. The bottom of the ramp is right at the very edge of the can where the polygons are facing out towards the right and towards the left. So the surface curves around, so the angle of the polygons changes sort of in relation to the camera. So here they're basically at 90 degrees to the camera, and here they're at 0 degrees to the camera. So basically the camera's looking right along the edge of the polygons over here. So what this does is, the color of these changes how much the surface is reflective. All right. So black is no reflection, and white is full mirror reflection. All right. So here what we've got in the middle, where the polygons are facing the camera, there's just a little bit of reflection there. And then as we get around to out here, okay, we're going to get quite a lot of reflection. We're going to get probably about 50%, 40-50% reflection, which is quite a bit. It's not like full chrome reflection, but it's like a sort of a very reflective metal. And you're going to get like a bit of a stripe of reflection through here. Okay. Then just a little bit further around, about here, so halfway between here and here, basically the reflection drops off again, and you just get a little bit of reflection until you go right around to the side. So what that's going to do, it's going to give us a streak down the side of the can that looks a little bit like what we've got here, but just not this kind of blown out and bright. So that's what that's doing. That's what that's going to do. Okay, so that's our reflectivity value sorted out. I'm just going to clear the graph up again by pressing the rearrange, just to clear that up, and I'll just press A to zoom in on that. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we want to add in a reflection image for our object. Now what this is going to do is basically, it's going to load an image into the material, and the material is going to think that that's the image of the environment around the object, and it's going to then reflect it as it would an object inside a room, or you know, like in real life, for example. So to do that, what we need to do is select our shader again, and we now come down to reflected color. And I'm going to click on the input for that, and I want to select an environment ball node, and it's down here near the bottom, just here, ENV ball, environment ball. So I'll just click on that, and you'll see it pops up here. Let's have a quick look here. We don't really have to change any of these settings. All we need to do really is load an image in. So where it says image, just come across to the input and click that. And then scroll up and look for file just here. So we're just going to load a picture in. Okay, so we'll grab image name and we'll click on that. And it'll take us through to the source images folder of our project folder here. Now, you'll see here that I've got a range of these different pictures. I got these sort of, from memory, I got these ones online. I may have gotten them off a magazine, like from a CG magazine, possibly. I can't remember exactly where, but I'll give you guys like a copy of these, and you can kind of just load them in. Otherwise, what you can do is just do a search online. If you have a look for, I'll just type it in down here so you can see it. If you type in HDRI backgrounds into Google, you should be able to come across some images that look a little bit like this. Really, all they are is just an unwrapped environment. So each of these you can wrap around a sphere or a cylinder, and it basically then makes that sphere or cylinder look like an environment. Some of them are photographs of places. There are a lot of very commonly used, well-known HDR maps that have been taken in Paris and places like that. So some of them are photographic, and some of them are just kind of rendered, computer-generated ones like this. So these ones just mimic studio lighting, and I'm just going to use one of these. So I think I might try this one. Okay, this one's going to give a very kind of soft result. Some of these other ones might work better perhaps, but you can try different ones and you'll get different effects on your reflections. Okay, so once again, you're not really going to see it on screen per se. If you switch viewport 2.0 on, you might see the reflections. Yeah, I'm seeing them there. So you can kind of see those reflections in the material, like that. This one here, this really bright one's actually from the default lighting in the scene, which we're going to disable a little bit anyway when we do our renders. But you can kind of see these kind of nice streaks that we're getting through the material. That's been caused by this image. Okay. So that's basically the material finished. We can kind of go in and tweak things, but really just to kind of see what we've got so far, I'm just going to do a quick test render and kind of see what it's looking like. So just to double check, you can see here I've got in my render settings, I've got render using Mental Ray. Okay, and really not change anything else in here. We don't really need to for the time being. I'll just press close, and what I'll do is press the render current frame button just here, and you can see there basically we're getting sort of all of the things that we need. So this white streak coming down here, this is the reflection. You can see those reflection images showing up in the can just there. Alright, and you can see them sort of on the back lip here. So that reflection's working quite nicely. Try one at a different angle, like this. I'll just store that so I can do a comparison. Yeah, so you see there we're getting these nice little streaks and so on for our can. What you can do is press this little blue sphere button, and that'll place up a little outline of sort of the scale of the image. And then you can make sure your object's definitely not hanging off the bottom of the screen or anything like that. And then just do some test renders to see what the object looks like so far. And you can obviously rotate your viewport around and look at it from different angles, take different renders from different angles just to sort of see what it's looking like. So that's working quite well. You know, I might zoom in on the top here and do one. Now at the moment the render settings haven't been set up, so it's doing a very, very low resolution render. Okay, it's very aliased and very blocky. You can see there's a lot of little kind of jagged bits and so on. All of that's going to get cleaned up when we do our final render. So the only other thing I'm going to do is just select everything. I'm going to, what I might do at this point is combine everything together into one object. So the ring pull and the rivet and the can are all one thing. So what I'll do is go mesh combine. And then what I'll do is go to modify freeze transformations and then edit, delete by type history. And that'll just get rid of any excess history. So really all we should see now in the attribute editor when we select the object is some form of poly surface, like a surface tab, a shape tab, and then the shader with the material in. So finally I'm just going to press 3 here, and that'll just smooth the object off. Now I'm going to do a test render of it smoothed, just to see what that looks like. Yeah, that's looking quite nice. You can see that there. It's looking a lot more realistic now. So that's basically it for the material. That's our can finished as far as the modeling and the materials and everything are concerned. So all we need to do now is the final phase of production. And that's basically adding lights to the scene, and then setting up our render settings and doing a final render of our finished model. After that, really all we need to do is just make sure we've got all of our files and everything kind of organized. And you know, potentially you could render a picture out of this and turn it into a poster. You know, maybe put it into Photoshop and add some text or something and make like a billboard poster or something out of it. But you know, obviously that's something that you can choose to do or not. So with that said, I'll leave this video here and I'll see you for the final phases of the project.